It's our great pleasure to welcome to our 2021 Online Trend Summit Lucy White, Commercial Director of Luminary Bakery, a truly inspiring business, a bakery, a cafe, a social enterprise founded to support women who experience disadvantage by teaching them how to bake. Lucy, it's a great pleasure to have you join us today.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
I'm super excited to talk to you today about the drive behind Luminary, what you do and why, how you mesh, really importantly, quality, experience, but also impact together. And of course, some of the things that you're seeing from a trends perspective in bakery and cake. Just a note to participants today, if you're joining today as a Trend Hub subscriber, you can discover more about the topics that are going to be covered in this discussion in the 22-23 Food and Beverage Mega Trend Framework within Food Democracy under Respect and Empowering Communities on Trend Hub. So Lucy, let's get started if that's okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about Luminary, the Luminary story? How did it all start and begin?
Luminary is, like you say, a mission-driven business or a social impact business, and Alice Williams, our founder, really created Luminary as a response to seeing a gap for women who had faced social and economic disadvantage, providing courses, work experience and employment to really empower women to build their own futures and build their own careers. So Luminary really exists to provide that safe but also professional environment, and to do this we're made up of Luminary as a business, which is a functioning commercial bakery, and there's also the Luminary charity. So the charity provide programs and training support for women to get them ready for what's almost always their first experience of the working world. So really the mission is to kind of break those cycles of disadvantage and provide a really sustainable way for women to build their future through baking.
Excellent. And how do you describe your, I guess, the bakery's purpose? What is it that you're trying to do, setting out to do?
Yeah, so I was really drawn to Luminary originally when I joined the team, actually, because the structure is very interesting. So Luminary Bakery Limited is a private limited company, but actually the charity is the majority shareholder. So it means that the impact is locked in right from the start. And it also means that as the business gets more and more successful, in the future, whether you can pay out dividends or whether you can just pay out more opportunities for employment, the charity benefits. So that's really appealing. And I think for us as a business, our primary purpose is to provide sustainable job opportunities. At the moment, there are lots within our business, given current hospitality staff shortages. And actually, it's a really sustainable way to say, be part of this business. We need you. And this is an opportunity for you to build your future and be paid and have a sustainable income to support your family and build your future. So employment is really at the heart of what we do.
It's a really interesting business model, isn't it? Because it's not just about charity, but combining that and having impact through a commercial business model as well. That's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it gives that dignity to, it's not just a charity handout, it's a lot of dignity. You're coming in, you're doing a job, you get challenged, you get it's high standards. And actually, I think that instills such a sense of pride when you progress and when you do that.
From a commercial business model point of view, there could have been various things you could have done. Why bakery and baking, I suppose? What is it about that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because you're right, in some senses the model could be transferred to lots of different industries, and it still could. I think what we definitely found at the start was that baking was quite a simple and quite a therapeutic way for women to come into a safe space. It's quite a low barrier to entry. It's not, you don't need loads and loads of equipment or skills to learn. And actually the act of working with your hands is quite therapeutic to the women. And we found that really early on, the act of training and teaching and learning was really beneficial, not just because it's a transferable skill, but also for women who have come out of very traumatic experiences. That proved really effective. I also think part of it was that it's a very tangible product that you can sell. So there wasn't loads of magic behind the idea, but actually it's proved to be really, really foundational for both the charity and the business in what we're doing.
And have you found that some of the women that have been involved in the program have gone on and used those practical skills baking skills in what they're doing, not just within the bakery, but beyond that.
Yes, and I think this is a really fantastic way of the impact playing out. So we've had women who have come through the Luminary program, charity programs, often been our apprentices or worked for us as a business. And then sometimes they get so good that they say, sorry, I'm off to start my own business, which obviously is gutting for us, but it's the model working actually when they do that. I think for me, that's really inspiring when you see that level of confidence to start your own business, create your own products. That's definitely something we see multiple times.
Yeah, that must be amazing to see that and to stock those products on the shelves. How else do you measure the impact that you've had? How do you know you're doing a good job?
For the business, a lot of it comes down to employment hours is a really easy metric to track. Yeah. So every week we look at the business and see, okay, how many graduates worked for us? Are those hours going up in the right direction as the business grows? And quarterly, we report on it to our investors as well. So really interesting angle, I think, is if you're an investor in the business, yes, you want to see a financial return, but actually our investors are an amazing bunch of people who are in it also for the social impact. So to see that creeping into the kind of 4 figures of paid hours per quarter is really exciting. So that's the easiest way we do it. The other angle is also the progression. So yes, it's fantastic when we hire an apprentice, but actually just a couple of days ago we signed on our latest apprentice for a permanent position. And so that's really interesting as well to see the progression, not just from entry level roles, but all the way up to managerial. And, you know, I'd be passionate to see it go into head office roles as well.
And can you share some, and you've alluded to some of them already in the first few moments of this discussion, but some of the success stories, I suppose, around, you know, Luminary, what are some of those other, you know, great positive stories?
Definitely the apprentices, like I mentioned. We've had a fantastic apprentice in the bakery who within just a few months of baking was doing these really high spec wedding cakes, which is quite a big jump from learning to bake to making these beautiful wedding cakes. And she's on full time in our team as well, and she's actually going to be part of the working group for a really high profile client we've got next year who have asked us to do 50 events with them, design new products, which are very, very high end afternoon tea products. So again, I think, gosh, that progression is really amazing to kind of propel someone to be.
That's incredible.
And we've had loads of other women, actually even women who have gone and had the confidence to say, do you know, I'm going to go and explore a different course, or I'm going to go to university, or I'm going to explore a different industry. Again, in the moment you think, oh, we want to keep you here and here. But actually, you know, that's the model working. And I think we've seen, I think it's 12 women now have set up their own businesses since graduating from Luminary, which is amazing. And if you think of the women they might go on to employ, the impact multiplies.
That's the impact in motion, isn't it? That's really, really inspiring. Because I mean, you've got some really high profile clients, you know, how does that make them feel?
The women in the bakery, it is just exciting to know, you know, every product they make is important and special, but it's exciting to know that it's going to, you know, a Hollywood star, or it's going somewhere, you know, very exclusive and important. And I think to have that recognition is brilliant for confidence. It also keeps our standards really high because, you know, like I say, sometimes these clients will just order in the background. And so you have to make sure that each one of the products is at that kind of quality. So it's definitely been good for morale. I think also a lot of the press we've been really fortunate to have. It's really inspiring to see it. You know, Waitrose magazine did a big feature on us earlier in the year, and to see some of the products that our team had created being in print is just inspiring. And it also gives a good platform for women in the future if they might work somewhere else. It gives credibility and it gives a platform, which I think has been just super encouraging for the team.
Yeah, for them to be able to reference that they've been involved in those you know, products that were featured in certain publications.
Yeah. Harry Styles popped into the cafe, which sent everyone to their knees. So thank you, Harry.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. How do you think consumers are changing in their attitudes to, I guess, food and purpose, and sort of how they're wanting to kind of make a difference? You know, has Luminary, I guess, more relevant today perhaps even more relevant today than it was before.
In the last 18 months, that's become more and more relevant. You know, COVID affected everybody, but some people were home with so much more disposable income. And I think just did become quite a bit more conscious about how will I spend this? You know, I've been lucky to have this provision and I really want to spend my money in a way that's going to make an impact. So we've always attracted consumers, I think, who have that drive and want to be purposeful. But we've seen it even in people popping into the cafes, but also purchasing online to send to other people.
Yeah,
There's something about saying, you know, this is somebody I care about. I want to send them a gift. You know, any food gift's fantastic, but actually if it's got the story, it just adds that layer of purpose, it adds that layer of impact. And I think we're just seeing that more and more, whether people are celebrating their wedding or their birthday or just, you know, sending a pick-me-up to a friend. I think it's becoming such a key part of the way we consume, and we've definitely seen that just grow and grow.
Do you think we're becoming more conscious, I suppose?
I think the younger generations are very, very, very thoughtful in the way they purchase. And that's not actually just even in the food, although it is, but I think it's also the whole experience. So how are you packaging your products? How are you shipping your products? How are you measuring the ingredients you use? I think lockdown's given us a little bit more time to think about, you know, were we just consuming really fast paced because we didn't have the time to think? And the whole idea of kind of purchasing with purpose is something we talk about a lot at Luminary. Some of the corporates we work with will talk about, you know, using their budgets to almost kind of cast a vote for the type of world they want. You know, I think we are seeing people become more conscious. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, actually. You obviously work with some quite large corporate clients. What is it, do you think, that they see in what Luminary does that makes that a more attractive option rather than going somewhere else, I suppose?
Everyone who comes to purchase from us is doing so because they want to have that impact. But actually, it's not just the really large corporates who want to come. It's actually all the way down to small businesses or freelancers. It's anybody who's thinking, I've got this business, I've got this resource. And when you run a business, you've got so many decision points and you can choose to take the easy route and just take the cheaper route or the easier route. But actually, we're seeing so many corporates come to us and say, we don't just want to do that. We want to have a mission. We want to have an impact. And I think for the larger corporates, there's often pressure from employees to say, actually, I don't just want a standard Christmas hamper. If I'm seeing you spend money, I want it to be on something that has a story and has an impact beyond just the food. So that, again, I don't think is going anywhere. I think it's just increasing, but I don't think it's just the large corporates. We're also seeing it all the way down to one-man bands who are just really passionate about using business as a force for good.
You talked about the younger generation. How do you think, or how has that impact from those kind of generational preferences sort of impacted on what your offer, I suppose, and what you do and how you pitch it?
In terms of the products themselves, we are always working on more non-gluten, plant-based offerings. We've seen that in things like weddings, definitely. You know, almost all our purchases will ask for a layer of something non-gluten or catering for dietary requirements. And, you know, even things like the packaging, we've just redesigned our packaging. So it's recyclable. And I think when you're a small business, you're always limited on what you can do first. You know, we're so about our social mission, and that's always going to be our focus. But actually, we want to be an ethical business at every level. And we've definitely had feedback from customers looking for that, not just in the food product, not just in the social impact, but in the whole customer experience.
The whole experience. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, you can't look at just the social impact in isolation. That there are other complementary facets that kind of naturally sit with that the audience is looking for.
Yeah, and we've even seen that with the cafes. You know, who are our suppliers? Do we work with other brands? Yes, we stock some of the Luminary graduates, which is amazing, and that's totally aligned with what we do, but also choosing suppliers, other social enterprises like the Dusty Knuckle Bread. We love working with those guys. They have a really similar impact story to us. Or New Ground Coffee, we do a lot of work with. They work with ex-offenders. So kind of that network, I think, is also really interesting to consumers as a whole.
Yeah, like every business in the UK, in the world, you obviously had to pivot during COVID. How did your offer evolve, and how did you innovate during that time?
Before COVID, we were primarily focused on our cafe offerings. We've got 2 cafe bakery sites in London.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, both of those had to close straight away. So everything was closed. And kind of out of that time, we realized the bakeries could still run.
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring Luminary across the UK in
Yeah.
a way that we weren't able to before? And so COVID was really the driver for us launching our e-commerce site. I think it forces you to innovate in a way. So we launched the online store in July 2021. And during those first 6 months, I mean, we grew 20-30% every month because people just wanted to purchase from us. And also people who had not been able to purchase before because they hadn't been in London were suddenly able to. So that was a huge time of innovation and change for us. I mean, it's tricky to do that, and there were definitely decisions we made where we kind of had to for the sake of speed, but actually I think we've become a much richer business because of it. And you know, the online sales channel is huge for our business now, and that's going to be a huge focus for us going forward.
Were there any products that were actually inspired, any kind of innovation opportunities that actually came out of COVID?
Yes, well, we had always done mini versions of our celebration cakes, which we'd never figured out how to post those. So we did. It took a couple of trials to post these via Royal Mail and DPD, who insisted they had to be able to survive their drivers throwing them on the floor from head height, which, you know, mind boggles. But anyway, we did that, and they managed to travel. And actually, given that our wedding and celebration cake clients had just fallen off, I mean, no one was able to gather. So those big cakes just weren't being purchased. So we had to think about, actually, if you're having a lockdown birthday, what about these mini cakes? So we launched them out of COVID, and they've been really, really popular. And I think they're definitely now one of our biggest online store successes.
It's almost the perfect gift as well, isn't it? You know, birthday treats or thank yous or thinking of you, that type of thing. And you can get them through the post. This whole kind of letterbox thing has been huge during recent times. You've touched on weddings a couple of times. They're obviously a big part of your business. How are you finding what people are asking for? How is that kind of changing in terms of, you know, format and design, themes and colors and flavors and those types of things? Really, really interested to hear about that.
I think that has fallen into kind of 2 categories. So I think there's still the kind of COVID hangover, like I'm saying, you know, there's fewer huge 3-tier wedding cakes coming through, which originally was difficult for us as a small business because the price point is so much lower once you downsize those. But actually also the products that our bakers were producing of these tiny cakes, you know, sometimes it's for 15 people, but you've still got the flowers and you've still got the story, and it actually still managed to be a really special part of those clients' days. So those have actually stuck around. I think the whole wedding industry has been kind of turned on its head post-COVID. So that's something that we're doing a lot more of, those really small cakes. And then the other kind of COVID-related thing is probably, like I said, those smaller individual cakes. But I think in terms of flavors and tastes, we've never done a traditional fruit cake. We've never done kind of royal icing. And so customers have always been keen to come and say, actually, you know, I'm the bride and I love lemon and blueberry, and the groom loves chocolate. Can you do something with those 2? And actually it's quite creative to be able to do the different layers. We're definitely seeing the dietary requirements, allergens and non-gluten trends as well, whether it's the whole cake, whether it's just the layer. Those are the main trends. We always get some bespoke requests from customers at a really kind of high end in terms of texture, or doing something clever with the design of the cake, but it's normally quite subtle. But our standard Luminary cakes are still the most popular by far.
And thinking outside of weddings, obviously people buy cakes for all sorts of different celebrations. Again, are there any kind of themes or, you know, designs or colors or anything like that, or flavors indeed, that people ask for outside of weddings that you've seen come through?
Even just in the last few weeks, you know, coming out of September, October, people are just celebrating again. And so we are seeing like quite big celebrations happening almost to counterbalance the weddings getting smaller. Sometimes people are just celebrating christenings that have been postponed or birthdays. So that's definitely been a thing. And so as a result of that, sometimes people are getting 2 or 3 tiered cakes just for a birthday, which I'm
just
on
because
board.
they can.
Yeah, I think it's quite fun. We're seeing that. I think in terms of flavors and product innovation, yeah, to be honest, I think it's more about the size of the cake and the kind of structure of it. I think the flavors, we're still seeing our most popular flavors are our kind of classics, really. I think our sticky toffee, our chocolate, our lemon and blueberry, you know, all of those, sometimes done in a non-gluten way, they're still kind of performing. I think it's more just people happy to be together and celebrating.
Yeah, exactly. And just being able to celebrate and reveling in that ability to have a get together and bring people together around food and drink, I guess.
I think so. I think the only probably extra thing I would say is there is still the focus on seasonality. I mean, we do that with our decorations on top of our cakes. So I think customers are a little bit more conscious in some ways of that, rather than having to have a cookie cut type cake.
And how does that actually manifest itself? So you mentioned seasonality there, and in terms of the kind of decoration, I guess that changes through spring, summer, autumn, winter, I guess. Yeah, or is it more subtle than that?
It does, sometimes a little bit more subtle on the smaller decoration pieces, but in terms of things like our online products, you know, we've got a spring brownie box, we've got a winter one. It just reflects what people want to eat. So last year we launched for Valentine's Day the kind of raspberry and white chocolate brownie box, and visually it was just really striking and beautiful, and I think people loved that for events, for, you know, taking photos, all of that kind of thing. It was interesting as well, we originally just called that raspberry and white chocolate brownie, not very inventively, and as soon as we called it Valentine's or spring seasonal box, the sales just went up like crazy. That's something we definitely keep doing.
Well, it sort of connects you perhaps to a time and a place as well, doesn't it? It's sort of when you talk about spring or Valentine's or those types of things, it kind of evokes something in your mind, as opposed to it just being a flavor. Outside of, obviously, you've got the bakery and online, where else? What are the other kind of Luminary Bakery touch points that we can experience now or in the future?
We're quite thoughtful about where you can access Luminary products, because as a small team, you know, we love providing direct to consumers and direct to corporate clients, but there are some partners we're thinking about working with, and there's a couple of quite high profile retailers who've actually approached us recently to say, you know, it's a huge priority now for these massive retailers to show that they're working with organizations who have a social impact, social purpose. So we're starting to go through that process, and that would be, again, a much bigger reach for us, both within London in physical stores, but also via their online distribution as well. And we've also partnered with a couple of smaller, more ethical platforms. So one that we just launched with last week is called Different Kind. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was founded by Liz Warner, who used to be CEO of Comic Relief, and they've just launched a platform with lots of ethical brands. And for us, Liz has been a huge supporter of us, but also, you know, that if you're on the shelves, on the virtual shelves next to other products, they're also going to be really curated. They're going to have a mission, and so I think that could be really exciting as well.
And is that being able to service those through the existing bakeries, or does that mean you're going to have to change your kind of infrastructure and, again, employ more people, have more impacts?
At the moment, it's done out of our existing sites. We are thinking through plans for a production kitchen, something to service those kind of larger volumes of orders. We've had a couple of orders come in that have just been really exciting, but so big in scale that we haven't quite been able to do that. So we're kind of pushing the ceiling of what we're able to do at the moment. We can probably do one more Christmas with our bakers stack hundreds of brownies at the door. It's a good problem to have. So we're thinking through very carefully what we do and looking at other businesses who have kind of done that journey before us to see how they did it.
One thing that I'm really, really intrigued to ask you is, how do you compete on, I guess, quality and product experience at the same time as having impact? And how do you kind of tread that line? Because you might think that they're juxtaposed, but you're obviously doing that. And how do you do it?
Yes, this is something I'm really passionate about, because I think sometimes you get a reputation for compromising on quality just because you have a social impact. And
Yeah,
I think these things can go hand in hand. I think if somebody purchases from us for the first time, it's probably because they love the mission, they want to support, they want to use their money in that way. But if the quality isn't there, they're not going to purchase a second time. They're not going to go to their colleagues or their clients and purchase. We want that repeat loyal customer. And I think the
yeah,
only way you can do that is if you've got a product that does compete with the very best out there. So I think we've never been fussed about competing with other social impact brands. I think the more the merrier.
yeah,
Are interested to be at a standard where you could put us on a shelf next to the very best products out there and say, actually, that's a really high quality
yeah,
product. They do good, they do
yeah,
it well. And we've worked with partners in the space who have definitely modeled that really well. We know Jude's ice cream founders quite well. I mean, and
yeah,
they're obsessed about their product quality, their taste. Every single spoonful has to be excellent, but they also do a lot of good as a business. And I think you can do it, that both those things go hand in hand. The only thing I would say is it is more difficult often as a business doing that, because you often do have to spend more money on training, on
yeah,
paying people fairly. We do those things, and our product price point often is a little bit higher because we're
yeah,
committed to doing those things. And I
yeah,
think customers are starting to understand that, but it's often a tension we have to weigh up. Do you invest back into the business? Do you pay your team? How do you balance all those priorities at once? It's not black and white, but I think it can be done.
yeah, definitely. It's really interesting that you talk about benchmarking on the quality and the experience and how you see your competitive set, as opposed to comparing yourself to other social impact business models. That's then how you benchmark.
Because I think also for our vision, actually, if women are coming through the program, they're working for Luminary possibly, but we'd love them to work for other big brands out there. And so you almost want to be at the standard where you're like, yes, you've been trained at Luminary, so we know you're going to be at a standard where you can compete
Yeah.
outside of Luminary. Yeah, I think the standard has to be really high to give credit to the vision, to give credit to the team.
How do you scale the impact? And you've touched on some of the things, I think, as we've gone through, but what does that kind of success look like for you?
Really good question. I think that training is going to be a really big part of it.
Yeah.
We're still so young and so small in some ways as a business, but I think I'd be really passionate about seeing women who've come through the Luminary program joining our business, being trained up, being upskilled, going into those manager level positions, going to a head office type position, and kind of helping build out the business in that way. I think on a much bigger scale, it will have to be women working in other businesses. It will have to be employment opportunities across the board.
Yeah.
It will be building a really strong network, I think, of graduates who have done the program together, who can share knowledge, who can share learnings, and come back and train. I mean, we've got on the charity side, we've got women who have been graduates of the program who've come back to train that next cohort. And I think that's when you start to reach scale, is when they can teach others and they can train. And it's really inspiring, I think, to see someone who's done that path before you.
No, amazing. More broadly, I suppose, how do you see, through your lens, the future of food and drink and Luminary's role within that future?
I think there is the theme of the conscious consumer. I think people are less inclined to make quick decisions or just purchase food that doesn't serve them or doesn't have a story. I think people will be much more conscious about who they choose to shop with, and more loyal as well in terms of repeat purchases. I think in terms of the products themselves, still definitely the move towards people being health conscious, which sounds maybe silly to say as a bakery, but actually I think people are conscious as a whole throughout the week, throughout the month. Where are they purchasing? What kind of products are they consuming? Can we provide something for those big celebrations that is of a really high quality? So the seasonality point, being able to cater for dietary requirements, for allergens, the impact we're having on the climate with our packaging as a business. I think all of that, it does play into that balance a little bit more. I think we're moving in that direction slightly more than possibly a couple of years ago. We're probably not at the cutting edge of product development as such, because I think people come back to the flavors that they love, and kind of that familiarity, I think, is also a piece of our business in terms of, you know, birthdays and occasions where families come together. We definitely see people repeating.
Yeah,
they love a little bit.
I have to ask you my last question: is what's in the name Luminary?
So our logo is a crescent moon. Luminary is about shining. It's about I think reflecting light and hope. There's a real sense of hope at Luminary. And I think for us, Luminary speaks so much to that light, to that hope, and to building your own future and second chance.
Amazing, really, really inspiring. And I think that's the threads of what you've just said there. You can apply to all sorts of different spheres of life and business and all sorts of things, and that's brilliant. Lucy, a huge thank you from Team TFP and the 2021 Summit audience for sharing the Luminary story, the incredible work that you do. And I think it's really interesting how you balance impact and commerciality, and of course what you're seeing in the world of bakery and cake trends. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. Thanks very much, Lucy, for joining us. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks.